Hello and welcome, I'm DDF Racer and today I'm going to be taking a look at a little piece of software called Z1 Analyzer. More specifically though, how to set it up and how to get the basics, how to use it. Z1 Analyzer is a great little tool that lets you read your sim racing data telemetry, analyze your laps, and work out how to be a better driver basically. It's got your throttle trace, your brake inputs, your steering inputs, your lap speed comparison against another lap, suspension travel, racing line, tips on how to not lock the brakes and where you're losing time in the lap. It's got a lot and it's really useful. Now I used Z1 Analyzer recently to make a comparison video between my old Logitech G29 pedals and my new Fanatec V3 pedals. But I kind of just jumped straight into it and had a look at the data. I didn't really show how I'd got that data on the screen or how I'd got the program up and running. So today, hopefully, I'm going to show you and give you a little bit more of an understanding on the basics of Z1 Analyzer. So once I've edited my ramblings today into one kind of cohesive video for YouTube, I'll actually put some time codes in the video description to let you jump backwards and forwards to specific sections that you might want to learn without watching the whole thing. You're welcome. Now you can run these bits of software for free, but there is a 15-minute limit on it, guys. So after 15 minutes, it will stop working. You can close it and reopen it again, so you can get another 15 minutes, and then another 15 minutes, and it keeps on going. But it can get a little bit annoying after a while, especially if you're doing a long run of laps and say you set your personal best 25 minutes into the run. It's using the free version. You're not going to have that data because it stopped working after 15. It's not impossible to use the free version, but it does get a little bit annoying after a while having to stop and open it every time. So the first thing you need to know is that Z1 Analyzer doesn't actually record any of your data. It only reads it. You're going to need another program called Z1 Dashboard. Now, these both come on the same download link. They're both available from the same person on the same site on the same link, which is in the video description. But yeah, Z1 Dashboard records it, Z1 Analyzer analyzes it, obviously. If you haven't already, go and download those because it's going to make it pretty difficult for you to follow along if you haven't got them on your computer as well. To record your data, all you need to do is run Z1 Dashboard in the background. Now obviously I haven't got any sims running at the moment, so it's just going to say waiting for connection, but if you're running Race Room, rFactor 2, Project Cars or whatever it is you're running, it will automatically connect and all you have to do is drive. For some of the sims, there may be a few additional configuration steps. For example, Race Room just works straight out of the box. I didn't have to do anything. But in rFactor 2, you have to go and install a plugin, and some of the sims, like Assetto Corsa, you have to enable some settings in the menus. It's a lot to cover in this one video, and it's all explained perfectly well on the Z1 Analyzer and Z1 Dashboard manual. So I'll put a link in the video description to that, guys. So make sure you go and set it up for the sim you're using. It shouldn't take you too long, and the instructions are very straightforward. I'll put a picture of that on the screen as well, just so you know what you're looking for. And something else you probably want to do immediately is turn off the audio. By default in Z1 Dashboard, it comes with very annoying sounds turned on. So make sure you go to Sound and untick the box that says Enable Sounds. And also go to the Speech tab and untick the box that says Enable Speech. Now you can leave this on if you want, because maybe you don't use Crew Chief or maybe you just want some more information on the race. You can use it like this. It's basic text-to-speech, but I personally don't need it, and especially for the sounds as well. It basically tells you beeps in the ear and tells you the number of the gear you're in. You don't really need that because you can see it on your dash in the car most of the time. You're probably going to turn it off. But that's it really, guys. Just make sure it's all connected and go and log some laps. Now I'm not going to log any laps for you right now because I've already done some. Last night I did some practice for next week's Tuesday Thunder driving the not sure how you say that really. Porsche. It's basically a Porsche RT12R at Bilsterberg, which is one hell of a fun combination. So let's go and have a look at some of that data. So just pretend that I've gone and done that now. So laps are logged. Let's click on Z1 Analyzer. Do I want to scan for laps? Well, obviously yes. Okay, so here we are. It scans some laps and you can basically go and load whatever you want. Now select your sim. Race Room is the only sim I've used with Z1 Analyzer so far, and you can select your circuit. Now Bilsterberg is the one I want, but you can also see the Oschersleben data from my Fanatec pedal video is still in here as well. And there's options to load a lap, load a comparison lap, we'll get onto that later. And just for ease of use, you can sort it by old or new or lap time, just whatever it makes to find it easier. because it does seem to load other people's laps in there as well. Just pay attention to the name. You can see here that other people have gone and had a lap around the Bilsterberg circuit that I've had a lap at as well. See here, Lani Thompson, for example, has gone and taken the Formula Race Room 90 V10 car around and managed 2 minutes 4 seconds. The lap that we're after today for the purposes of this video is this one. Daniel D. Finney, 1 minute 34.389. That is my best lap for my practice run so far. So let's double click on this and load in the data. You can click on the map anywhere you want and say, look at this corner here, and you can see the line has now come into the telemetry as well. You can see exactly the traces here, and vice versa. You can click anywhere on the trace and it will change it on the map. And if you want to zoom into a particular section, you can just click and drag. So let's have a look at this bit here, the long downhill left. You can see my traces for that as well. To zoom back out again, just double click and it will go straight back to the view. Also worth pointing out on the track map as well, guys, you can turn on or off the brake and acceleration points here. So this bit of the circuit is just as it is, and then this bit shows you the brake and accelerating points as well. I like to leave it on because it gives me a much more graphical representation of what's happening on the track. You can also enable 3D mode as well if you want to see the elevation changes. Now you can rotate this view and you can flip the view as well. I'm not sure why you'd want to flip the view, but hey, there you go, you can if you want. But yeah, using the rotation lets you have a look at the elevation as well, which is pretty cool. And another quick little tip for you guys, I don't use this when I'm analysing data by myself, but if I'm analysing data as part of a team, say for example with my Virtual Endurance Championship teammates at Speedy Might, you can go to Display at the top left and click on Show Corner Overlays. Now what this does is it numbers all the corners for you. And it avoids any confusion as to the old argument, is this a straight, is this a kink, is this a corner number? You don't have to remember corner numbers, you don't have to remember corner names, you don't have to... It avoids a lot of confusion basically. So when I say I'm talking about turn 11, everybody knows what turn 11 is. Some people don't think, oh that's only turn 10 because that one's not a corner. No. This helps with communication across the board and make sure everybody's on the same page. Like I said, I personally don't use it when I'm analysing data by myself, but as part of a team, this is very useful. Now this is the default screen that I've got set up because this is what I've used previously, but your default screen will be different. Not to worry, you can move it all around, you can adjust it, you can change it, you can basically configure it exactly how you want. And it's really easy to do that. All you have to do is click the boxes and, well, that's it really. So I have to click the boxes. You can shrink them using the little triangle in the bottom right or make them bigger. Configure them to your size, and if you want to get rid of them, you can click on the X on the top right as well. It's pretty straightforward stuff. If you want to get a box back that you've accidentally deleted, click on Display on the top left of the screen, and then enable, disable whichever traces you want. So these are the traces that I tend to run with normally when I'm looking at my data. These are the ones that I think are the most valuable, but you can configure it however you want. So say for example, you wanted to load in your gears as well. Let's just put this here right in the middle of the screen. So say for example, you want to go and look at your gears. So if we go to the top and click on Display and look at the gears here, just loads up this window in the middle of the screen, and so we want to make that a little bit bigger, just there. That's where we want to do it. You don't have to do that every time you open and load again. If you want to save a new layout, you can go to File at the top, Save Layout, and then, I don't know, say Gear View, and click Save. There we go, the layout has been saved. Now you can then load and save as many layouts as you want, so if you have a particular view for one thing, you can configure it and save it as that. If you have a view for another thing, say suspension, you can load all that and save it as that. So you can have as many of these as you want, that's fine, and it's completely up to you as to how you customize your view. There's plenty of things you can choose from, and I'm only really going to cover the basics in this video, just how to get this up and running and show you what everything is. But there's a really cool feature, really cool feature about Z1 Analyzer, which I think just sets this apart and just makes it really cool. Just great to look at. The video screen, top left. Now, you want to sync this up. You want to basically play your video and watch your lap at the same time. So the first thing you want to do is click on the little open icon here and then select your video file. Now this is the most important part. You need to play your video and you need to find the point at which you cross the start finish line. The navigation tools aren't great in Z1 Analyzer as far as video goes. You can't select a specific point. You just have to play it and then scrub backwards and forwards and then pause at that moment. And also as well, you can't get replay files directly from the game, you do have to record it, but you can use something like OBS or maybe even Windows built-in video capture if you're on Windows 10. Record your video from the replay and then load it in and watch this. Okay, so I just crossed the start-finish line there, and I need to go and sync that up. So if I press scrub back here, the exact point at which I crossed the line... we just crossed it though, you can see, because the hand moved on the gear shifter. There we go. We're at the start of the lap. Very important. Click the checkered flag to set the start of the lap. And what you need to do now is to get this to match up with your data. You need to click on the track map all the way to the start until it disappears. So you haven't got a dot there. That basically means you're at the start of the lap. So now your data's at the start and your video's at the start. Click on this thing here, the sync icon, the 2 arrows. And when it's green, the video and the telemetry will now play at the same time. And a nice little tip as well, you can actually do this all in slow motion if you wanted to by clicking on the play button more than once. That will actually cycle through to half speed, quarter speed, 8th speed, 16th speed. And that's pretty much it. But you can see here it all matches up on the graphs as well. You can see exactly where we're at. And if I wanted to skip ahead in the track as well and go to this section here, there we go, it works. Now you can basically load any point in your lap and it will be synced up and it will just make it a lot nicer. And you can still load in your other windows, configure them around, and it will keep all that synced for you as well. Okay, so this is all well and good, looking at one particular lap on one particular run and seeing one set of data, but what happens if you want to compare it to another lap, say in a different car, to compare how a different car takes a track, maybe different setup, or maybe just the same car and setup just to see how you drove differently? Well, that's really easy. All you have to do is go to File at the top, Open Lap, and then just have a look for another lap. So I'm going to have a look at this one here, 135.2, which is about 9/10 off what I did before. So right click on that, click on Open as Base Lap, and you can now see we have a grey line in the background on our traces. Now the main lap, the first lap, is still our fastest, but the base lap is now in grey, and this is what we are comparing it to. Now you can switch these around if you want. You can have whichever one you want. So if you go to laps, you can see swap laps here. Let's do that. But we don't want to do that for this example because then we'll lose the sync on our video, so let's swap them back. So the grey line is my previous attempt. Something that you want to know pretty quickly off the bat is how you're going to compare this data, because there's two basic ways. You can compare by lap speed, or you can compare by lap distance. Now if you compare by lap speed, if you're significantly faster on one lap, all your braking points, all the corners aren't going to be synced up because, say, you're a second faster, the data's going to get to the end a second quicker. So when you're comparing, it's usually better to compare by lap distance, and I'll show you very quickly how to make sure that's enabled. Okay, so if you want to go to File, click on Settings, and then see here where it says Graph By, you can select lap time, lap percent, or lap distance. Now I prefer lap distance so that both laps are taking the data from the same distance. So in this example, 213 meters on my faster lap, you can see that I am doing 69 kilometers an hour, whereas on my previous lap I was doing 72, so I was actually going into the corner faster, and I actually think I got a better run on my slower lap. So there's some more time I can find already. That is the beauty of Z1 Analyzer, you can find this data pretty quickly. But if I was to compare this by lap speed, then my traces would be out of sync, so I wouldn't be able to do a direct comparison between the two corners. I hope that makes sense. Now this is something else that you might want to check out while you're in the options menu, guys. Throttle brake inputs. You can either set it to raw or filtered. I use filtered, and basically the difference between this is, with filtered, anything that the game does to change your input is displayed on your telemetry. For example, when I change gear, the throttle either cuts out or does an auto blip, so that will show up when I have filtered inputs on. If I wanted to see exactly the inputs I was putting through the pedals, change that over to raw, and that will show you what you're doing, not what the game is doing to your inputs. And also, if you're one of those people who prefers to measure things in freedom units, then you can do that from the menu screen here as well. You can change kilometers to miles, liters to gallons, Celsius to Fahrenheit, and so on. So this is the basics then of how you load a lap, load in a second lap, sync up your data, zoom in, zoom out, configure your screen how you want to see it. This is enough to get you up and running, but let's be honest, Z1 Analyzer has a lot more features than this, and I'm going to take you through them very briefly now. If you click at the top left where it says Analysis, there's a heap of new screens that you can pop up. So let's have a look at Track Walk, and for the purposes of this, the video window does tend to bug out a little bit, to be honest with you, so I'm just going to close this video window for now. We don't need to see this. If we click on Turn 1, it will tell you the characteristics of Turn 1. So this is a right-hand turn that follows right into the next left-hand turn. The first half of the turn is slightly uphill. There is hardly any camber in the road at this point. The second half is a little bit uphill. There is hardly any camber in the road at this point too. It tells you the elevations, it tells you the camber, it tells you all sorts. Now this is stuff that wouldn't necessarily be perceptible when you're driving around, especially in a GT2 car. This just blows your mind. That thing is a rocket ship. But anyway, these are the little things. If you know there's camber in a corner, if you know there's a little bit of elevation change, you can then think, right, I can take more grip basically. I can do it faster. Or if it's got a massive elevation change, you know that maybe I need to be a little bit more careful on the throttle because the car's going to go light. And this is what they actually do in the real world as well when they go around for their track walks. They take all these notes of the track and they see where they can use it to their advantage. So let's have a look at turn 15. The second half of the turn starts off downhill. You'll be slightly down on grip here. There's hardly any camber of the road at this point. The end of the turn is just slightly downhill. So it even says there you're going to be down on grip. So if you're struggling at a particular corner, have a look at the track walk screen. It might just help you out. So this is the speed comparison screen, and it basically tells you a comparison of speed between your two laps. It's that simple. If you zoom in very closely, you can see that one side of the track is red, one side of the track is blue. Obviously that relates to the blue and red laps at the top of the screen. Tells you where you're braking, tells you where you're accelerating. You can see the little blips there, the white little blips are your gear shifts. So you can see on my red lap, I was actually shifting a little bit later through this section here, but I shifted earlier before the corner. And again down the straight as well here, you can see on my faster lap, I'm actually shifting up later. And you can click any point on this lap as well, and you can get a direct comparison. And moving on to the next screen, we are now looking at the breakpoint comparisons. Visually, it looks very similar to the speed comparison, but instead of showing you your speed, it shows you your breakpoints. You can click on any of these boxes. Now this brings up a lot more detail. I was braking for 97 meters, whereas opposed to on my base lap before I was braking for 120 meters. That equates to 3/4 of a second longer on the brakes. Now on my main lap I was braking harder, and if we bring that back up again, you can see my entry speed was roughly the same, but my exit speed was 15 kilometers an hour faster, so I really must have messed up that first corner on my base lap. Anytime you can see these little orange markers, just click it and you get a little bit more information. And moving on to the next screen then, you can see the driving line. This one is incredibly useful. This overlays where you physically were on the track. Now this would be very useful for finding out if a particular line is quicker or not, if you've got more grip. You can see here I turned in a lot sooner to the fast left-hander at the top of the hill here. Look at the red line here, guys. I'm taking a lot more apex. I think on the blue lap I just ran completely wide there because I still make it here. I still make it for the second part of the chicane, but the turn-in is just so much later, and that must have cost me a heap of time. But moving on to the next screen, let's see what we have. The analysis of the turns. You can see how much time I'm gaining or losing per turn, and it's obviously very nicely demonstrated by a green or a red bar. And there's some specific advice here. What's this? So turn 15, I lifted off the throttle exiting the turn, probably because I got some oversteer or understeer. Lifting off after you reach full throttle can cost you a lot of time down the following straight, so maybe try waiting a little bit longer before getting back to full throttle so that you do not need to back off to keep the car under control. This kind of stuff is invaluable. It's actually custom tailored advice to your driving. So here we are on the next screen, the brake lockup screen, and as you can see at the top of the screen, congratulations, no lockups occurred, which is great news for me, but obviously not great news for the purpose of the video because I haven't got anything to show you. But if I did lock up the brakes, then it would show it here for how long I locked up for and how I could avoid it in the future. So this could be a good indication of if you need to adjust your brake pressure or just go easy on the pedals, basically. Okay, so now this is the ride height screen. Not necessarily that useful if you're running default setups like I do most of the time, but if you're tweaking the car, then you want to have that car as low to the ground as possible, but not so low that it just bottoms out everywhere on the track and just loses your speed. Basically, the redder the colour, the closer to the ground the car is. And it did actually bottom out at one particular point here. So, the right front hit the ground. I had a ground strike for 1.18 meters. Now that is probably just Bilsterberg being Bilsterberg with the elevation changes around here, guys. That is probably not much I can do about that. That is just the compression and the dips and everything. I'm actually quite surprised it didn't happen more often. But this will be very useful for if you're really trying to tune a car setup and you want to get that ride height as low as possible. Tweak it down as far as you can, go and do a telemetry run, and then see how much you're hitting the ground. And here is the understeer screen, which could be very useful for working out when you're scrubbing the fronts across the track because you haven't got enough grip, or maybe you're just putting too much steering input in. The darker the colour, the darker the green, the more understeer you have. Now you can see on both laps here, they look pretty similar. There's not much in it really here. Let's have a look at this lap here. On my blue lap, on my base lap, I had a bit more understeer going through the left here, but not too much. Nothing major really. And there's a bit more turn-in understeer here on my fast lap as well. So swings and roundabouts, but it didn't come up with any pointers on the track, so there wasn't any significant moments. I'd say that's fine. Now obviously this takes up quite a lot of the screen, so if you want to get back to the view you had before, just click on the little X here to get rid of it, and then because I saved my layout from before, just click on Open Layout, DDF Pedals. There we go, back in business, although I will have to sync my video back up again now. If you close the video window, it does lose it unfortunately, so that is slightly painful. Now there are a few more features here which I haven't really delved into too much, so I can't really explain in great detail or I can't give you great insight on what they actually mean because I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'll be the first to admit that I need to do more research and figure out what I'm looking at. But you can use scatter plots and histograms to your advantage. So I'm going to show you very quickly RPM versus speed. I mean, it looks pretty, but yeah, like I said, I don't know what that means really. So I'll get back to you on that one, but at least you know that feature is there. And same for histograms as well. I've just loaded in the corners of the car with the shock velocities here. Again, I don't really know what I'm looking at, but someone who is more skilled in telemetry, such as your Nick Dealys and your Aussies of your Speedy Mites, they could probably tell you what this means, but I can't, unfortunately. It just looks real nice. Now, if you need some professional help, at least in a telemetry capacity anyway, then click on this YouTube help bar at the top of the screen, and the people who make Z1 Analyzer and Z1 Dashboard have actually put together some great explanations. They've done a much better job than I could ever do of explaining it, but a lot of you guys are asking in the comments about what this piece of software was and how to get it up and running and what the basics of it are. So hopefully this is coming useful for you guys, but like I said, YouTube help across the top here will do a much better job of explaining the specifics of what to look for in your telemetry. But this should at least give you an idea of what to expect and how to get up and running, guys. The rest is up to you. You got to go and drive, you got to do some consistent laps, and then you've got to go and have a look at your data, and I can't do that for you, but at least now you should have a bit of a better understanding about it. If you did find it useful, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave it a like. Say hi in the comments. Come and also say hi over on my Discord server. There's a link in the description to that, where you'll find all the regular faces from the DDF Racer YouTube channel, live streams and comment sections. They're a friendly bunch, and they're very happy to help. And they're always helping me with everything I do on the channel, and I couldn't do half the things I do on this channel without them. So big shout out to the DDF Racer YouTube channel community. You guys are awesome. And of course, because I am a total shill these days and I've completely sold out, make sure you subscribe to the channel to see me actually racing and maybe doing some more of these style videos as well. If that's what you want, subscribe, let me know, like the video, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. Look after yourself, and I'll see you all real soon.